The morning started like any other, with investors sipping their coffee and scanning market updates. Yet there was an undercurrent of tension that made the day feel different. Somewhere in the financial corridors of power, behind thick walls and reinforced security doors, something was stirring, something that would shake the expectations of the entire currency world. At PNC, CBI, and Bank of America, select insiders were buzzing quietly, moving with deliberate urgency that hinted at secrecy and anticipation. Today, a protocol that had long existed only as a rumor was coming alive, and only a select few would witness it firsthand. The secret Dinar Protocol, a phrase whispered in financial forums and speculative circles for years, was being activated, and the implications were staggering. In a secure, windowless room at PNC headquarters, several pre-approved clients had gathered under strict instructions. Phones were left at the door, cameras were banned, and even casual conversation was monitored. The atmosphere was tense, the kind of tension that grips a room when everyone knows they are about to witness something extraordinary but can't yet fully comprehend what it might mean. Monitors flickered to life one by one, revealing live screens displaying Iraqi Dinar exchange rates that seemed to hover between disbelief and hope. Numbers scrolled across the screens in real time, each fluctuation carrying potential wealth, opportunity, or risk, depending on who was watching. For many, it was the culmination of years of waiting, speculation, and anticipation. Some clients leaned closer to the screens, their eyes wide, unable to look away. Others kept their distance, heartbeats quickening with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. The dinar's value was showing changes in increments that, for ordinary investors, seemed almost mythical. These were not the minor daily adjustments seen on open exchanges. They were patterns and movements that spoke of a significant shift, a recalibration that could impact countless lives if it extended. Beyond this room, every flicker, every number felt like history in the making. Conversations whispered under breath were filled with speculation. Is this real? One client muttered, barely audible. Another shook his head in disbelief, staring at a sequence of figures that suggested gains beyond anything publicly discussed in financial news. Meanwhile, the analysts and bank officials guiding the session were calm, almost eerily so, their expressions betraying nothing. They had rehearsed these scenarios countless times in simulations, preparing for the day when the protocol would activate. Yet even they felt a quiet thrill, knowing that the protocol's activation was not just a technical process, but a historic moment that few would ever witness firsthand. They answered cautious questions with measured responses, careful not to confirm anything that could compromise the sensitive information being displayed. And yet, with each passing minute, the reality of the numbers became undeniable. The clients, the chosen few, were seeing something tangible, something real, something that could change their financial trajectories forever. Outside the room, the world remained oblivious. Ordinary investors, news agencies, and social media channels had yet to catch wind of what was unfolding. A few speculative posts appeared online, vague and filled with uncertainty, but nothing concrete. For those outside this circle, the dinar remained just another currency, fluctuating quietly, without hint of the secret developments inside PNC, CBI, and BOA. But for those inside, every second mattered. Screens displayed transaction windows, rate calculations, and complex protocol interactions that hinted at a carefully orchestrated plan. This was not chaos, it was precision, a controlled activation designed to test, reveal, and prepare the system for the next stages of its rollout. And the pre-approved clients, chosen for their experience, trustworthiness, and previous engagements, were witnesses to it all. Some leaned back, trying to process the implications. Others scribbled notes or calculated hypothetical outcomes, each attempting to quantify the significance of what they were seeing. In quiet corners of the room, the air was thick with unspoken questions. What does this mean for the dinar's global position? How quickly could this shift reach open markets? Would this trigger a wave of revaluations elsewhere? Each question hung in the air, unanswered, yet driving a palpable energy that made the room feel alive, almost electric. Outside observers could only guess at the excitement, imagining graphs, numbers, and projections that the public had no access to, yet even guesses fell short of the reality being displayed on screens. By mid-morning, small murmurs of realization began to spread through the room. Clients exchanged subtle glances, a mixture of astonishment and cautious optimism. It was clear to all that what they were seeing was unprecedented, at least in scale and immediacy. For some, this was validation proof that years of following the dinar closely, of holding their positions and trusting in delayed promises, was about to pay off. For others, the moment was overwhelming, a mix of excitement and fear that such information could lead to sudden changes in wealth, responsibility, and even influence. The room remained under strict surveillance, yet there was a sense that time itself had slowed, that these moments were precious and fleeting. The bank officials overseeing the activation remained composed, guiding the participants through screens, dashboards, and protocols. Their calmness belied the enormity of the situation. Each number, each flash of data, was carefully designed to be meaningful but secure, ensuring that sensitive details were not prematurely exposed while still allowing the clients to witness the impact. Outside this room, the world waited unknowingly. Ordinary news outlets had nothing yet in these moments, a quiet revolution in currency exchange and financial speculation was unfolding. The secret dinar protocol was no longer theory or rumor. It was real, and those privileged to see it firsthand were part of a story that could shape markets, investments, and economic histories in ways most would never imagine. By the time the first hour had passed, the room had settled into a rhythm, a silent acknowledgement that they were witnessing something rare and extraordinary. Eyes remained fixed on the screens, minds raced with calculations, and hearts beat with anticipation. The activation had started as a secret, quiet, almost imperceptible in the grand scheme of global finance. But the impact on those present was immediate, undeniable, and electric. It was a moment suspended between expectation and reality, a fleeting glimpse at what the future of the Iraqi dinar, and perhaps even global currency relations, could hold. Every flicker of the screens, every small fluctuation, was a story in itself, a narrative of possibilities that would echo far beyond the walls of this room once the news inevitably spread. The morning passed with tension, exhilaration, and unspoken understanding. The secret dinar protocol had been activated. Pre-approved clients were seeing screens, and while the world outside remained unaware inside, history was quietly, yet unmistakably, being written. The conference room was silent, except for the soft hum of monitors and the occasional click of a mouse. Pre-approved clients, still reeling from the initial revelation of the secret dinar protocol, had now settled into a tense focus, their eyes locked on the screens before them. Each monitor displayed live exchange data, transaction windows, and intricate protocol codes, flashing numbers that seemed almost unreal. It was as if they had stepped into a parallel financial universe, one where time slowed, calculations mattered more than ever, and every blink of the eye could mean the difference between fortune and missed opportunity. A low murmur spread across the room as clients whispered to one another, careful not to disturb the intense concentration. Some leaned closer to analyze patterns, comparing real-time fluctuations with charts they had memorized over years of careful study. Others sat back, taking deep breaths, trying to process the enormity of what they were witnessing. The dinar was no longer just a currency they had studied from afar. It had become a living, breathing entity on their screens, fluctuating in ways that hinted at an imminent transformation. Every fraction of change suggested that the activation of this protocol was not just technical, it was historical. Bank officials moved quietly among the clients, providing guidance only when necessary, carefully avoiding any explicit confirmation of outcomes. Their presence was a reminder that while these clients were privileged to witness the protocol, the stakes remained high. Questions were asked cautiously, answered in cryptic yet reassuring ways. "Watch the pattern here," one official said, pointing to a section of the screen where subtle shifts in the dinar's valuation hinted at larger implications. Clients leaned in, scrutinizing every detail, attempting to anticipate what these changes could mean once the information became public, and more importantly, what it meant for their own financial strategies. The room felt like a delicate balance between exhilaration and anxiety. For some, years of waiting and studying had culminated in this moment. They had anticipated revaluation, followed every rumor, and now they were seeing it firsthand. The numbers on the screen were unlike anything they had expected, significant, immediate, and undeniable. For others, the scene was overwhelming, a mix of disbelief and cautious optimism. Could these fluctuations truly indicate a full-scale dinar revaluation? Was this the long-awaited turning point they had hoped for, or just a preliminary test, a glimpse of what might come? Each client wrestled privately with these questions, balancing hope with skepticism and excitement with fear. Meanwhile, subtle gestures passed between some clients, a nod here, a quick glance there, as if silent communication carried more weight than spoken words. They had all been pre-approved, yes, but each came from different backgrounds, with different levels of experience in currency speculation. The shared experience created an unspoken camaraderie, a sense of unity in secrecy. No one spoke of sharing screenshots outside the room. It was understood that what they were seeing was a privilege, a rare opportunity to witness history unfold before it reached the wider world. The tension of secrecy only heightened the sense of importance and immediacy. Time seemed to stretch as clients began mentally calculating potential outcomes. Some tapped furiously at their phones, running models and projections, while others jotted notes in small, precise handwriting, careful to avoid drawing attention. The implications were dizzying: gains beyond imagination, shifts in global exchange patterns, and the tantalizing possibility of being among the first to act should the protocol's activation extend into public markets. Conversations, though hushed, reflected the intensity of these calculations. If the trend continues, this could change everything, one client whispered. Another, more cautious, replied, "We have to wait. One wrong move could erase any advantage." Outside the room, the world remained oblivious. Social media platforms and financial news outlets carried only speculation and minor fluctuations, none of which hinted at the magnitude of what was unfolding behind these walls. In the room, every flicker of the screen, every subtle shift in numbers carried a gravity that outsiders could never comprehend. The pre-approved clients understood that while the protocol remained hidden, they were witnessing a window into a financial future that few could ever access. It was thrilling, overwhelming, and, in a sense, terrifying. The analysts guiding the session introduced small tests to help clients familiarize themselves with the data, showing how minor adjustments could ripple through the system. The clients watched intently, testing scenarios in their minds, considering the global impact of even slight shifts. It was not just about immediate gains, it was about understanding the dynamics of the protocol, anticipating its broader consequences, and preparing for a moment when this secret would inevitably intersect with the public domain. Every calculation, every observation became part of a mental map that would guide future decisions. Some clients quietly shared theories with one another, speculating about why the banks had activated the protocol at this particular moment. Was it a calculated step in a larger global strategy? Was it a response to political developments, economic forecasts, or something entirely unseen? Answers were scarce, but the very act of theorizing created a dynamic tension in the room. Each hypothesis, each potential scenario, added layers to the narrative unfolding on the screens. For many, this was more than numbers. It was a story of power, timing, and opportunity, written in real-time data that only they could see. Hours passed without notice. The initial shock and awe gave way to a focused intensity. Clients moved from wide-eyed astonishment to meticulous analysis, absorbing patterns, testing assumptions, and adjusting expectations. Small conversations about potential next steps continued quietly, each carefully worded to avoid revealing too much to their neighbors. Every participant felt the weight of their privileged position, the knowledge that what they saw today could shape financial decisions for years to come. It was a rare moment when anticipation, observation, and potential action converged in a perfectly contained space. By mid-afternoon, the atmosphere was electric, filled with a quiet but palpable sense of urgency. Clients began mentally preparing for the future, imagining how this information would affect their portfolios, strategies, and even lives. Some experienced a thrill bordering on disbelief, others a more measured excitement. But all shared the same sense that something extraordinary was happening, something that would eventually ripple far beyond the walls of this room. They were not merely spectators, they were participants, witnesses, and perhaps even architects of a financial story that few outside this circle would ever fully understand. As the session drew to a close, clients exchanged subtle looks, nods of understanding, and quiet acknowledgments. They had seen it, understood its magnitude, and felt the weight of its potential. The secret Dinar Protocol had not only been activated, it had created a moment of history, witnessed by a privileged few who now carried its implications with them. When the doors opened, they would step back into the outside world, which remained entirely unaware of the seismic shift occurring just beyond their view. But for those inside, nothing would ever be the same. They had seen the screens, they had absorbed the patterns, and they had glimpsed a future that few could even imagine. In that quiet, charged room, behind the monitors and guarded walls, the activation of the secret Dinar Protocol had done more than reveal numbers. It had awakened possibilities. Pre-approved clients left with minds racing, hearts pounding, and a profound understanding that they were part of something rare, monumental, and irreversible. The world outside continued its routine, oblivious to the financial currents surging just out of reach. But inside, the story was clear, the dinar was alive, the protocol was real, and the moment they had waited for, perhaps for a lifetime, was unfolding before their very eyes. By mid-afternoon, the tension in the room had transformed into a focused energy that seemed almost tangible. The pre-approved clients, once died with disbelief, now operated with a calm intensity, eyes glued to the screens that displayed every movement of the secret Dinar Protocol in real time. The numbers were no longer abstract, they were alive, shifting with an almost rhythmic precision that suggested both power and inevitability. Each fluctuation hinted at a possible revaluation, and the clients understood that the opportunity before them was unique, possibly once in a lifetime. Outside, the world remained unaware, caught in its routine of news updates, social media scrolls, and minor market fluctuations. Oblivious to the storm of change brewing behind reinforced walls and secure doors, the clients leaned forward, analyzing, calculating, and occasionally exchanging subtle glances that carried volumes without words. Some had been following the dinar for years, meticulously tracking rumors, trends, and speculative reports. Others were newer, still trying to reconcile the surreal reality on the screens with the expectations they had carried into the room. The impact of the protocol was already palpable. Patterns emerged and disappeared, numbers rose and fell, all with a precision that suggested careful orchestration by PNC, CBI, and BOA. The activation was not chaotic, it was deliberate, controlled, and meticulously calculated. Those who understood even a fraction of what was happening realized they were witnessing more than an exchange, they were observing the mechanics of a financial event designed to alter history. The analysts and bank officials moved among the clients, their presence calm but authoritative. They answered questions sparingly, providing just enough guidance to help participants interpret the screens without compromising the security of the protocol. A subtle nod here, a brief glance there, a carefully worded phrase, all served to maintain control while allowing clients to feel a sense of engagement and ownership. Every client, whether veteran investor or cautious newcomer, absorbed the information in silence, recognizing that the insights they gained today could guide decisions for months or even years. It was a rare blend of opportunity and responsibility, and the weight of it was not lost on anyone present. Whispers began to circulate about potential scenarios. If this continues, one client murmured, eyes never leaving the monitor, the revaluation could be immediate or at least within days. Another responded cautiously, We have to anticipate volatility. The numbers could stabilize or spike in unpredictable ways once public awareness increases. Even as they spoke, each client was already running mental simulations, considering the consequences of every potential move. The room was filled with quiet concentration, punctuated only by occasional gasps or murmurs when a particularly significant shift appeared on the screens. Outside, the world continued oblivious, but inside, the implications were profound. Conversations shifted from speculation to strategic planning, with participants weighing the timing of potential actions against the secrecy of the current moment. Every flicker, every small fluctuation was scrutinized. Patterns that would seem minor to an untrained observer carried immense meaning for those in the room. Each client understood that this was not just a financial exercise, it was an exercise in timing, patience, and understanding the invisible forces that governed currency value. The secret Dinar Protocol had revealed not only numbers, but also insights into the orchestration of global financial flows. Some participants began quietly sharing observations with their neighbors, careful to remain discreet. "See this section," one whispered, pointing to a rapidly changing value. "It could indicate the first stage of broader activation." Another nodded, lips pressed in thought, "And if this continues, early action could secure positions ahead of the public market." Yet, even in these hushed exchanges, there was an unspoken agreement: nothing would leave this room. The protocol's secrecy was paramount, and the privilege of witnessing it carried an implicit code of conduct. Breach of that trust could have consequences far beyond financial loss. It could jeopardize relationships, access, and credibility in circles that were rarely open to outsiders. Hours passed in a tense blur. Clients shifted between focus on numbers, strategic discussions, and quiet reflection. Some checked their own notes against the live data, comparing predictions with reality. Others tried to anticipate the next patterns, forming mental models of how the dinar could react once the protocol extended into broader circulation. It was a delicate balance between observation and analysis, and each participant felt the weight of the moment keenly. No one had expected to witness such controlled volatility, where every movement was meaningful and every calculation mattered. A sense of anticipation began to grow, subtle but undeniable. Clients understood that they were not merely observing. At some point, the opportunity to act would present itself. Timing would be everything, and preparation was critical. Some adjusted their mental strategies, recalculating potential moves, considering the risk of acting too soon versus waiting too long. The room was alive with thought, energy, and the quiet hum of possibility. Each screen flicker was a heartbeat in a larger story, a story of potential wealth, strategy, and global consequence. As the afternoon wore on, clients began to reflect on the broader implications of the protocol. Beyond personal gains, there were questions about how this would affect markets, governments, and ordinary investors once news inevitably spread. The activation was a signal, a controlled test, and a demonstration of influence. For those inside, it was clear that the dinar's journey had moved from speculation to realization. Patterns were emerging that suggested a carefully staged revaluation, and those who understood the nuances could anticipate shifts in ways that could be transformative. The combination of secrecy, precision, and real-time visibility created an experience that was almost overwhelming in its magnitude. Despite the intensity, a quiet camaraderie developed among the clients. They were witnesses to something rare, almost sacred in its exclusivity. There were nods of understanding, subtle acknowledgments, and brief exchanges that conveyed shared recognition of the moment's importance. It was not about competition within the room. It was about absorbing, understanding, and preparing for what lay ahead. Each participant felt both exhilaration and responsibility, aware that this knowledge was powerful and fragile. By late afternoon, the session began to draw to a natural close. Clients leaned back, taking a collective breath, their minds racing with calculations, projections, and what-ifs. The secret Dinar Protocol had not only activated, It had revealed patterns, possibilities, and a glimpse of a future that few outside these walls would ever comprehend. Each participant felt the weight of the moment and the privilege of their position. The screens would eventually power down, the room would empty, and the world outside would remain unaware, but the insights gained today were indelible. The pre-approved clients left the room quietly, each lost in thought, carrying with them not just numbers but an understanding of timing, opportunity, and the unfolding of a significant financial event. Outside, the ordinary hum of life continued, unaware of the seismic activity in the currency world that had quietly, precisely, and deliberately unfolded just hours before. For those inside, the story was clear. The secret Dinar Protocol was real, it had been activated, and history was being quietly written before their eyes. They had seen the screens, absorbed the patterns, and felt the ripple of a financial wave that would eventually touch the world in ways that were only beginning to be understood. As they walked away, there was a shared, unspoken acknowledgement that this moment was transformative. The numbers on the screens were more than figures, they were signals, markers of potential, and a testament to the careful orchestration of the banks that had made this activation possible. For the clients, the day had been a rare convergence of preparation, privilege, and perception. The secret Dinar Protocol had created an unprecedented window into financial opportunity, and those who had witnessed it would carry the lessons, the insights, and the memory of this historic moment. For the rest of their lives, the world beyond the doors remained unaware, routine, and predictable, but for those inside, the morning and afternoon had revealed a new reality. The dinar was no longer just a currency, it was a story, a movement, and a living signal of change. And as the clients departed into the late afternoon light, each understood that they had glimpsed a rare moment in financial history, one that would be remembered long after the screens had gone dark. And the secret Dinar Protocol became part of the unfolding economic narrative,